Welcome back to the podcast. Today we've got Micah, Katarina today on the podcast, a repeated guest. Last time we had you on the show was in March, and we got a lot we spoke about last time, and we got even more to speak about. I'm actually glad to have back on board. So how are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. I had such a great time when we had our chat last time, so I'm pumped.
Let's do a lot more chats about wearing black, travel, and fitness as well.
Yes, well, actually, I can see you've got the uniform on today.
See,
you're wearing black.
Is
that on purpose?
Yeah, 100%. I had a grey hoodie on before, so I was like, you know what, let's just get on brand. So
let's get with it.
Can't to dive into the podcast because I think last time we spoke, and this would be quite cool to even dive into. You changed your business name since we last spoke from Female Transformation Formula. So what's shifted the change from where you were to now? How have things changed from like a place of coaching and business?
Yeah, so the name change is quite an interesting one. So the coaching program was called the Female Transformation Formula. And then we made a decision to switch it to Lifestyle Physique. And it was a decision that I've been wanting to make for a really long time. And the program was actually called Lifestyle Physique within the Female Transformation Formula. So it wasn't something that came like completely out of the blue, but the Female Transformation Formula was more of the process that we use to help our clients get the results that they are coming to us for. So hence the name, like Female Transformation Formula, like that was the formula that we were using with all of our clients. Whereas Lifestyle Physique really is the outcome of the transformation that we're looking to help every single one of our clients achieve. We want to be able to help them achieve a body that they love while also living a lifestyle that they love. And that's really where the concept of Lifestyle Physique came from. And we really wanted the brand to be for the client. We wanted them to be able to really resonate with what it is that they are coming to work with us for. And Female Transformation Formula, as I was saying, is very much more like the process of change and the process of transformation, whereas Lifestyle Physique is that's the destination, that's the outcome. And that's actually something I've run mentorships and things like that in the past with female coaches and personal trainers, and that's the number one thing that I teach them is to focus on with their clients. Is like, don't focus on the process, focus on the outcome, and make sure that every single decision that you make when it comes to your coaching is based on the outcome that the client is coming to you for and looking to achieve. I think they're both cool names: Female Transformation Formula, Lifestyle Physique. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. It's FTF is like a nice ring to it. So I think that kind of inspired a lot of what we do in terms of like the method. And it's like, I think mine's very similar to mine. Yours obviously specific to us female. And it's kind of like one thing I wanted to dive into because I've spoke about this in previous podcasts, but for you, what's a Lifestyle Physique? Is it something what's your like, you can say almost biases? Because I think a lot of times like we coach through our own lens in terms of how we view fitness and also like the experiences we've gone through. When you say the outcome, what's the outcome that you want all your girls to get to, more importantly?
So I really can sum it up into two sentences. And that is outcome that I'm looking to help every single one of my clients achieve is to be able to create a body that they love while also living a lifestyle that they love. Like that is the number one goal, because I've been there, and I'm sure you can probably resonate with this yourself in the past, where I've gotten myself into really great shape, but it's come at the cost of everything else that I've loved in life. And I haven't felt fulfilled at the end of it. And then it's been basically impossible for me to be able to keep progressing and maintain that physique because of what I was doing in order to achieve it, which was basically putting everything else on my life on hold. And I travel the world full time. I don't always have access to even a kitchen. I'm literally changing gyms every 2 weeks. And so for me, like, I can't live, that lifestyle of someone that's just like, eating the exact same thing every single day, not eating out at restaurants, having access to, the same gym and just being so meticulous with absolutely everything. Like, that's just not the reality of my life. And I'm also not looking to be a bodybuilder to be competitive and step on stage either. So it's just not necessary for me to have to live that life to get those results. And I think what I really came to realize from going down the bodybuilding route, because I've competed a few times in the past, was that one, it wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted to live for myself. And two, I don't even want to look like that. Like, I don't want to be so lean that I have literal like veins popping out of my abs and have, no period as a woman because I'm too crazy lean. What I found is, like, if I can be at around about that 19 BMI, like 16 to 18% body fat, that's awesome. Like, that is where I love to be. I can maintain that year round, and it doesn't require huge amounts of sacrifice in terms of my lifestyle to be able to do that. So that's really where my coaching stems from, is my own personal journey of having been through all of that, come out the other end of it, realizing what it is that I want for my life and for my body. And I know that a lot of other women are the same. They don't want to be taking things to the absolute extremes. They want to be able to be in epic shape, feel amazing, feel confident, and know that they can do all the things that they love in life as well. And that your fitness journey, like, it is there to enhance your life. It's not there to detract from it if you're doing it right.
100%. 100%. It's funny because that's kind of a very similar place that I came from, and it was a place where I'd be just work and nothing else, and then just fitness and nothing else, like a one-dimensional approach. And it's like, you can have it all. And I think when it comes to something I'd love to dive into is, like, people see the outcome, they're like, oh, I'm just going to do what the person at the outcome will do, right? And I think very often people go into something striving for balance right away. I'd love to kind of like challenge that to people that may be listening. They may want to go through a transformation within their body, but they're going straight into the end goal, if that makes sense. So they're always looking at, oh, I need to be balanced, and I need to be in that place where they're just focusing on like sustainability from the get-go. Mm-hmm. Like, for people that start the transformation, what do you think is important to know when it comes to like getting to the outcome of like a lifestyle physique, and like, what mindset do you think is required to succeed within that?
Yeah, so I think before you should even dive into the strategy that's required to get you from A to B, which is typically how we're taught to set goals, right? It's like very outcome focused, of like, oh, I want to lose 8 kilos in 16 weeks, right? Like, that's the definition of like a, smart goal setting, which is what everyone learns when we go to personal training schools. Help your clients set smart goals. And that's really the last part of the equation we really need to be focusing on, both as coaches, but also for the client as well. Mm-hmm. And what I am like just so passionate about, because it was just absolutely life-changing for me, is helping the client first get clear on who it is that they want to become and what that identity shift needs to look like for them before we even focus on the physique side of things and more of like the data-driven numbers of like really diving into strategy of what's going to be required for them to get there. Because that's where people really fall down, is like they get given the plan and then they wonder why they have so much resistance come up, or yo-yoing will come in where they're just consistently on and off the plan. It's because they haven't been taught yet how to do the inner work. Because the external work, that will just come. Like, the physique is just going to come as a byproduct of you changing who you are as a person and really taking the time and the effort and the energy required to step into the highest version of yourself. And we actually spoke about this a little bit in the last podcast that I did with you. I went on a little bit of a tangent of speaking about the fact of we need to take more time and space for ourselves to actually dream and think about what it is that we really want for our life and the person that we want to become. And I think what I can do in this podcast is like bring in a little bit more of the actual like how to go about that process and how to do that. And for me and my client, I like to break it down into like 3 different steps that they go through when it comes to like really getting clear on the identity. And the first step is to get clear on the thoughts that you want to be creating on a day-to-day basis. So you think about, okay, the 2.0 version of myself, what thoughts is she thinking on a day-to-day basis? Like, how positive are those thoughts? How empowering are those thoughts? And I actually get the girls to like write it down, because it has to come from within. It has to come from things that really, really resonate with you. And the reason why we start with thoughts is because thoughts drive our emotions, and then our emotions will then drive our actions, right? So we have to start with the mind. Then once we've then gone through that process of getting clear on what thoughts we want to be having on a day-to-day basis, we then say, well, what actions do we want to be taking on a day-to-day basis? What does that actually look like? And then we write all of the actions down. So we go thoughts to action. And then once we've then done actions, then we can get clear on what do we want our physique to look like? And what feelings, what emotions do we want that to actually bring for us? Because what we have to understand about the physique is it's not the physique per se that we're looking for. It's how that physique enhances the quality of our life. That's what we're looking for, whether that's more confidence, more energy, because we're taking really great care of ourselves. We want to be able to, for myself, like in the past, I wanted to be able to wear certain types of dresses and bikinis and to wear them with confidence and to look a certain way. And I don't think that there's anything negative with that either. I think at the end of the day, like we all have a vision for what we want our physical body to represent. And I am so passionate about teaching women how to achieve that. But that, I don't believe that is a negative thing whatsoever, to have a vision for what you want your physique to represent. And it's so important to be able to give yourself that space and time to actually close your eyes and give yourself permission to dream about it and really think about it. And you'll know this, we get all of our clients to work towards a professional photo shoot in a year's time. So that's why we kind of fly around the world and we host all of these different photo shoot weekend events for our clients. And with this exercise, the physique side of things, that's what I'm getting them to visualize, is them at the day of their photo shoot showing up and how they want to look, how they want to feel, what thoughts are they thinking, what actions are they taking on that day, and what change has happened within that period of time. And it's like a movie that they can then play over in their mind. And that is the vision, that is the goal that we are working towards. And so then once we've got these 3 specific visions, we've got our thoughts, we've got our actions, and then we've got our mental movie of what we want our physique to look like. Then what I love to do is write down affirmations to yourself from these 3 separate visualizations. So it could be a really long list. I think pen to paper is amazing. And just start the sentence with I am. So it could be, I am the type of person who goes to the gym 3 days a week. Or I am the person who always follows through on the things that she says that she's going to do. So you take these visions and then you actually write it down into really tangible affirmations, and you repeat those to yourself. Like, I recommend putting them around your house. For example, I have certain sticky notes that are like up on my bathroom mirror, and I'm just reminded of those every single day. And I think that's really the first step to visualization. And as a bonus to this, you can mood board it as well. And I highly recommend doing that, because what you'll notice is that when you visualize, it's a mental movie, right? You're visualizing certain images in your mind, and that's how our brain works. Like, we're very visual creatures. So if you can take those visions and then mood board it, and then have that somewhere, whether it's on your phone or you print it out to be around your house, then that's constantly going to remind you of what it is that you are working towards on a day-to-day basis. So I'm a huge fan of being able to move forward out these visions. Once we then have that and it's crystal clear, we then have to move on to more of like the strategy side of things, right? Because it's one thing to like have a vision and to have that be crystal clear and to know what it is that you want. The second step is then to make sure that we've actually got a plan to be able to achieve it on a day-to-day basis. So inside our coaching program, we have an exercise that we teach all of our clients. It's called the 24-hour focus exercise. And basically, I'll give you like a really quick rundown of it. You just take 10 minutes to plan out your day the evening before. So you look at the things that you need to do, whether that's, going to the gym, doing a training session, going outside and going for a walk, getting your steps in, everything that you need to do within that day. And I'm a minimalist, so I really like to teach my clients, like, strip out all the stuff that isn't necessary, just keep in the things that are really necessary. So you plan out your day ahead of time. And I know that it sounds like the simplest thing in the world, but we all know what our days feel like when we don't take that 10 minutes to actually plan it out. Everything kind of just goes to shambles, right? So we do that. And then we actually take another moment again to visualize ourselves going through that day and taking those actions ahead of time. Because what you can then do is attach a lot of positivity to the actions that you're going to be taking the next day. And that's really important, because if you feel negative about something, the likelihood that you're going to do it is very, very low. So we want to be able to go through that visualization process, and it allows you to like rehearse things ahead of time as well. Like in the coaching space, like we know the difference between a client who, let's say they're, in fat loss phase, they're prioritizing being in a caloric deficit. If they just take 5 minutes ahead of time, if they're going out for a social event, to plan out what it is that they're going to be having, how they're going to be navigating that meal, that person's going to make really awesome decisions that are in alignment with their highest values and with the goals that they do have currently, versus the person who just wings it, doesn't take any time at all to plan or visualize ahead of time, and they just kind of see what happens when they are there. So that's really what we're trying to do with the 24-hour focus exercise, is like, let's create a plan for the following day. And what has been a really nice mindset shift for me is understanding that the journey is where we find all of the fulfillment, and the journey can only be lived 24 hours at a time. So we don't need to think about what next Wednesday is going to look like, or a month down the track. All we actually need to focus on, once our North Star vision is set, is how we're going to be showing up and living our life within the next 24 hours. Because if you just practice showing up as the highest version of yourself 24 hours at a time every single day, eventually you're going to arrive at everything that you had originally set out to achieve. And it will just happen as a byproduct of living out those days, living out those 24 hours at a time. And I think it also helps you to be a lot more present on your journey as well. Because I think sometimes we can get so caught up in being in what I call like chase mode, where it's like, I'm currently here, however, I want to get to here. And there's this huge gap that's created, right? Yeah. And the gap is where all of the mental suffering lies, because you're like, well, I'm not going to give myself permission to feel the way I really want to feel about myself until I get to here. Whereas we want to be able to remove the mental suffering, remove the gap, and understand that all of the things that we truly want to feel about ourselves, we can feel today if we show ourselves proof that we are making progress towards the goals that we have set for ourselves. And an example of this is like in training, right? Like, let's say you have I used to have a goal before I achieved it of hitting 110 kilos on my Romanian deadlift for a certain amount of reps. Like, I had that goal. And what I found is that anytime I would go into the gym and do my Romanian deadlifts and I wasn't lifting that, I'd be like, oh, I just can't wait until I get there, right? So every session, even though I was making progress, kind of felt like a failure. So it was just really simple mindset shift of being like, wait a moment. If I'm feeling like a failure now, am I actually going to give myself permission to actually feel really good once I get to 110? And what's going to happen once I get to 110? Because I know myself, I'm a very driven individual. I'm just going to want to get to 120 and then 130 and then 140. Well, why don't I give myself permission to enjoy every single little bit of progress along the journey, along the way? And my life changed because I was like, anytime that I get an extra rep or my technique would get better or I'd add a little bit more load, I was like, damn, like this is epic. Like I'm making awesome progress here. And it was just a much, much, much more enjoyable way to actually approach the journey of transformation. And I'm sure that you see this in your clients, you know, when they see that they're making progress, they've got that momentum going, and they've just had a successful day. Like they've crushed their nutrition, they crushed their training, they crushed their steps. And you've probably gotten these messages before where they're like, I absolutely crushed it today. Like I'm making really awesome progress. And it's like, yes, like that is it. That is what we're looking for. And as humans, like we're hardwired for growth and progress.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we feel like we're achieving that and just getting 1% better every single day, that's where all of the fulfillment lies. It's balancing that gap, right? It's like understanding that, yep, we're not at our goal yet, but we're on the journey of getting there. We're becoming the person who is achieving their goals. We're making 1% progress every single day. And it's just a different way of being. It's far more empowering.
It's so powerful you said that, because there's a lot of things I can dive into from what you said. And like, this is one of the biggest things I believe is like, you don't get the abs or the six pack, you become the person that gets that. And it's like the gravitational pull. So like my mentor always says that you don't become the person that has a business. You don't get you don't do the things that a business would require. You actually become the person that owns a business and earns X amount or does this thing. Is like gravitational pull is like, you don't necessarily focus on like what you have to do, but who you have to become that eventually does the thing in the first place. So I actually find now like your body's always going to stay behind your mind, and your mind's going to be the thing that pushes it forward, and your body's never going to surpass your mind. So like, especially when it comes to, let's say, getting a photo shoot outcome, it's like right at the end, the main thing that really matters is stress management and like the inner thoughts. And like initially you can get to a good place, but if you want to get to a good place, that's great. But if you want to get to a far better place, like these big things become very important. And men are kind of like, they don't think big enough in their fitness goals. Like, I just want to look lean and get the abs and get the six pack. But I think when you really dive into that, what it actually is, you don't want to get the six pack. You want to get what that gives you. So like the status symbol, and it becomes like you become that person that does X. So I think that's a really good point you mentioned there, where it's like if you get stuck in the gap rather than get stuck in the game, you're always going to live in the distance, and you live in the distance, you're always going to be unfulfilled. And there's that saying where it's like happiness is the gap between your expectation and reality. If you're in the gap, you're going to be dissatisfied the whole way through, right? So like you mentioned, like I think focusing on the outcome is incredibly important, and just knowing what you want. But I also think is that becoming the person. So it's like a gravitational pull, because I'm not sure if you saw, I did a photo shoot 2 months ago, and I was like, I got the pictures. I was like, I forgot to post it for like 2 weeks, and I was like, oh shit, probably should post them, right? And it's like everything is all about the person that's becoming, and then now the outcome. Like most people do it to share on social media or to kind of like get external gratification. But I was like, oh, I probably should post the pictures at some point, and let's just do it then. But more so, it's like the process of becoming is far better than being. And like you said, it's like growth is a human value. So when you're not growing, it's like you feel like there's just something that's missing in the background that you can't figure it out. So I think that's a big thing for you. Like just kind of like what you started speaking about at the start there was that principles to live by, and having the affirmations. I've actually got this sheet right here, and like every time I look at that, I'm like, I am the person that's on time for people, and like I'm the person that doesn't get distracted, so I can say yes to my priorities and say no to distractions and these certain things. Every time I get pulled away from that, is actually that's the person I am, and that's what I need to act like. I'd love to hear what are the principles that you carry over for yourself, because I think that'd be really, from a selfish perspective, but also for the audience, it'd be really cool to hear.
No, I love that. I love that because you sent me a photo of your own list, and that's why it's so powerful to have it like printed out and actually in a space where you're reminded of it every day. And I think as well, like you said, like when you get pulled away from it, like maybe you've taken a certain action that has been quote unquote out of alignment of those character traits of you being at your highest self, having that compassion and forgiveness for yourself, like not judging yourself in a negative way for it, but just being able to bring that awareness in to say, oh, I did something that was out of alignment here. Let's make sure that I get back into alignment. Let's make sure that the next action, the next decision I make is in alignment with that highest version of myself. Because I think sometimes what we can do is we can attach our actions to our self-worth. And that's a place that we mentally don't want to be. Like it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you achieve, your self-worth doesn't change. That's one thing that I think that every single human being on the planet, we really need to embrace that and learn that. And for me, that was life-changing. I found a lot of inner peace when I learned that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money I earn. It doesn't matter how successful I am in business. That does not change my self-worth. And if we can just come from that really beautiful foundation, I think anything that we then do outside of that is a bonus, right? It's being able to like have that balance. Like my self-worth doesn't change, but I do have a vision and I do have these goals. And so it allows you to come from a much more, peaceful, positive place when it comes to achieving those things. And I would say one principle that I really try my best to live by is to live each day one day at a time. Because in the past, I felt like I was very much in chase mode. I'm a very driven person, and it kind of bit me on the ass in a sense, because I was just always setting goals and achieving them, and then setting goals and then achieving them. And the gap just always felt so huge that I didn't feel like I was actually just giving myself permission to enjoy living my life. And you can probably resonate with this within your work. Like if you choose to be present in what it is that you're working on and you choose to just enjoy it, you're usually far more productive anyway, right? Perfect. And you just feel so much more aligned, versus if you're in chase mode, it's like, oh, I've got to do, and I'm not going to give myself permission to stop until this thing is finished, right? An example of this is a few years ago, I was living on the Gold Coast in Australia. And I was living in this beautiful apartment, I kid you not, 300 meters from the beach. And like 3 months had gone by and I hadn't even gone for a swim. I was working so much. I was just in front of my laptop all the time. Yeah. And I just remember thinking like, well, isn't the whole point of me working on all of this right now, like so that I can also have this beautiful balance to be able to go to the beach and enjoy, and like that's one of my highest values in life, is like being able to be by the water. Like I absolutely love the ocean. And it's just like I just remember sitting in front of my laptop one day and not feeling productive at all, had way too much coffee, and I just, when you can see your reflection in the laptop screen, and I was like, I'm just going to close this down and just go for a swim. And I felt so amazing for it. And I just had a conversation with myself to say, you can achieve all of the goals that you have for yourself, and you can also live your life and be extremely present and do all of the things that you love while doing this. And that's been so helpful in the last few years, even just with traveling, because I love to travel. I love to be in new places and experience new things. And I also love to work. I love coaching. I love to work. I love to help my clients, and I love to grow the business side of things. And I just believe that if you know what it is that you want and you know what your values are, you really can do both.
You can kind of tell just from me saying that what your values are. It's growth and novelty, or uncertainty, you can say, because there's like the novelty of change and like how things like travel obviously kind of ties into that. And I think obviously growth is like a big value from your actions. So it's funny with our values, I think people say their values are X, but they're actually Y from what they are doing as opposed to what they're saying. So it took me a long time to realize that, but I was saying I wanted X, but I actually realized my values from actions were something else. And for me to accept my actions was like really, really hard at that point. And when I accepted them, it's easy to change, because it's more of a case of you actually holding up a mirror from the subconscious to the conscious, and then you can change the conscious, but you can't change what you don't know. So I think that's what you said there, I think you can almost pick away, and I kind of knew from before, it was like you can kind of tell what your values are from your actions. So I think that's a powerful place to be.
That was an interesting thing that I learned actually from Tony Robbins about the 6 core human needs and how we all have them and we all have to fulfill them. But within the 6 core human needs, we have what we call like resourceful behaviors and unresourceful behaviors. So what can happen is you can be meeting your needs through really unresourceful behaviors that completely detract from the quality of your life and the goals that you do have. And once I understood that, it makes so much sense from a psychology standpoint to understand why people do the things that they do. It's because they're doing a certain action and behavior to meet a certain core human need. And a lot of what I do with coaching is I help people understand that it's not that you need to get rid of something, it's that you need to replace it. So if there's an unresourceful habit that you're continuously doing on a day-to-day basis, it's not about getting rid of that habit. It's actually about replacing it with something that is called what we call like a resourceful behavior that is going to enhance quality of your life and move you closer towards your goals. So it's like, it's not taking away and adding in. It's just that mentality of like, we've got to be able to replace it. It's like, for example, like if you're finding that you're always having another coffee in the afternoon and then you're struggling to sleep, you're not going to you can't just take away that next cup of coffee. You actually got to replace it with doing something else, right? Whether that's having a decaf coffee or a cup of tea, or maybe it's not replacing it with another liquid. Maybe it's doing another action instead. So I'm a really big fan of working on replacing things with clients. And I've seen really awesome changes and success with that.
That's a really good way to think of it. And kind of what you mentioned there about the values, the 6 values, I think that was very game changer for me to actually realize and learn. One thing that I actually dived into was actually a trip back this Saturday. So we went to a personal development workshop this Saturday in Edinburgh, Murrayfield.
Yeah, I missed you. I've been in Edinburgh so many times this year, but when I'm not there,
There you go. That's all right. Cool. Now's the opportunity, and it's it's crazy, right? Because the one thing with the human needs, I think that's one of the biggest things you can realize, because this applies to, I don't know, you agree with me, is like in relationships too, when someone's got like an unsatisfied relationship, or in terms of work, they're dissatisfied because one of the needs aren't being met. So like for me, I know my needs are kind of like growth. I'm not really security driven for a place of actions. I'm more like growth and contribution, like belonging and like having a big cause and like something that's bigger than me. So that's my 2 biggest things. So like I know when those 2 things are satisfied, everything else is extra. So if there's security, great, that's fine. But I'm more growth and contribution driven, just from like what I realized it. And when you actually realize that, you can live in alignment with that. So with relationships, with work, as long as you know why you're doing it, then it comes back to the human needs and knowing which ones are the most important. Because I thought it was actually more of a case of security in relationship. Actually, it's more growth in relationships and contribution that gives you identity. I was like, that's interesting. But one thing I like to kind of dive into, which I love to hear your focus on now, is like when it comes to like 5 drivers of human motivation, there's curiosity, there's passion, there's mastery, autonomy, and purpose. For you, I think that's always going to be different depending on the category you speak within. For you, in terms of fitness, what's the motivator right now, would you say, out of those 5?
I haven't heard about this one before. Can you list them out to me again?
So curiosity is like, how good can things be? I'm curious in terms of how far I can take things. Passion is you find fulfillment in the work. Mastery is how good can I get and how can I master this to be the best. Autonomy is taking control. Purpose is something bigger than you.
And are you asking what is mine as
in fitness,
in my coaching or in my own fitness journey?
Your own personal development fitness journey.
My own fitness journey. I'm going to say it's probably a mixture of purpose and autonomy. The reason being is I like the fact that my fitness journey and like my training, my nutrition, all of that is so simple that it's just on autopilot. It's not really something that, it's like, it's not something I need to spend like a huge amount of time on, but it gets me awesome results. So I'm going to say autonomy from like that perspective. But then I'm also going to say purpose, because I believe that I have a responsibility to my clients to show up and to lead from the front with my own personal journey. But I also have a responsibility, like, for example, when I really want to have kids in the future, and I want to make sure that if I have daughters, and if I have boys as well, more so if I have daughters, I want them to have a really beautiful relationship with themselves and with fitness. And I know that the actions that I take and my own self-image and the way that I speak to myself and the actions that I take on a day-to-day basis, they will see all of that. And from watching me, they will learn how to then do things for themselves. So I really want to be a good example for my future children, as much as I want to be a really great example for my clients as well. So that's where the purpose side of things definitely does stem from. And I see this in my clients as well. You know, I work with a lot of women that are mums. And when I ask them, like, what is your deeper purpose for pursuing this transformation journey? 9 times out of 10, they're doing it for their kids, so that they can show their kids what's possible. And they can show, you know, if they have daughters, what it's like to have a really beautiful relationship with fitness and to go after their goals and to be the type of person that follows through on the things that they say that they will do, which is really powerful.
Love that. I love that. Something you actually said there, and I think I kind of pulled that out when you said, I actually see that, because one thing I remember realizing the difference between this, like a difference between a coach and a mentor. And a mentor is someone that's been there, done it, and still doing it, and they can teach from experience. But a coach aims to like have curiosity to understand where the client's coming from, so they can help that. So some people have the conception, and to be honest, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. It wasn't even a question, but it was like how some people don't walk the walk, but they still teach it. And that's, I say this softly, but that's okay from a coaching standpoint, even though I don't agree with it as much. But from a mentoring perspective, is actually you've done the thing that your clients want to do, and you can almost inspire them and walk them through the same path that you walk through. So I think for yourself, like, you're almost a coach and a mentor at the same time, which is quite powerful. And I think that's where you get the best results. Whereby if you can just be a coach, you've not been a mentor, it's a different story. But if you're just a mentor without a coach, then you can't need both, right? So I think that's why it's really interesting you said that, because at the same time, you having the driver as that purpose allows you to be a coach and the mentor at the same time, that's where the biggest change comes. So
yeah, I think it's a deep question, because I think you can argue for both sides, like in different aspects of life as well. Like, I think if you can find someone that can truly help you, then that is incredible. You're probably not going to care too much about what they're doing in their own life if they're an incredible coach who can help you, right? So there is that side of it. And I think it's individual as well. I think some people would, if you gave them the option of which person would you prefer to work with, do you want the person who has helped a lot of other people get this result and they're also doing it themselves, or do you want the person that hasn't done it themselves, or maybe has done it themselves in the past but isn't currently doing it, but have all of these amazing client results? I think it's an individual thing. But I will say I definitely wouldn't be the coach that I am today if I hadn't gone through it myself. Like, I can hand on heart say that I would not be able to coach the way that I coach now and have achieved the results I've achieved with my clients now if I hadn't gone through it all myself. And I learned so much by continuing to go through it as well. So for me personally, that's just who I am, and that's just the way I do things. And I've seen really great success. Like, I've worked with so many women that they weren't coaches to start with, and from joining the program and learning everything inside out for themselves and going through an incredible journey of transformation, they are now coaches, and they have the confidence now to be able to then help other women. So I do believe when it comes to physique transformations specifically, yes, you do have to go through your own journey first, then have the confidence and the skill set to be able to teach it. But then the reason why I said I'll argue for both sides is I also know a lot of people who've put in work to get into great shape, and they're terrible at helping other people do the same.
It's a good point you mentioned that, to be fair. That's fine. I think it's a good point you mentioned there, to be fair. I think it's like kind of, like you mentioned, you're able to get more results, and it is just more congruent because you do the thing that you tell other people to do. And I think that's very important too. Like, I think coaching is like the best thing you can have and we can give, because it's like, rather than thinking of how can you make a boat, which may take 3 years, you can find someone that makes boats in a week. And it's like the amount of time you can still spend back. And I think now it's like my mind's actually changed over the last 2 years, and it's been like not thinking what to do, but who's done it. And it's like this step and this the secret. So I find that's a really good place to actually come from, is like not thinking what, but think who. And then that's the C-step. So
your environment's so important. Getting around people that are doing things that you want to do is so important. And that's why coaching is so valuable, because you put yourself in an environment where your goals become normalized. And we see this with all of our clients. Like, we just did a photo shoot weekend with them in LA that we were chatting about, and just getting all of the girls together in a room, like they just connect instantly. This is the first time they've all met each other in person. And yes, it is. It's like just finding your tribe and other people who just understand you and get you, and create that beautiful safe space to just authentically be yourself and to have awesome goals that you were striving for. That's what I love about the community aspect of what we do as well, is just being able to bring people together and make those amazing memories. And you always find that people are just like so fired up as well to then achieve the next goal after being around other people who are on the same page.
Do you just kind of put you in the spot as well, because I know I want to throw some questions, but it dives into you as a person. What's the hardest thing you've ever done? Just put you on the spot.
The hardest thing I've ever done. Oh my goodness. The hardest thing I've ever done. I'll be really honest here and say, so growing up, I came from like a really broken family household, and my dad was really quite sick, and I was the only person who actually lived with my dad. And making the decision to move and go to university and not be there to take care of him anymore, that was probably the hardest decision that I ever had to make in my life, for sure.
I appreciate that. I appreciate sharing that. It's kind of funny, because it's kind of crazy, because I was speaking to my mentor recently, and he actually passed away 2 days ago, and like that's the reason why I'm here as well. And something like Charlie, who is my other mentor as well, we used to be together in terms of like part of the mentorship. It's really crazy what he said, and kind of something I want to speak about on the podcast is like, you become the person you are because of the people you met and the impact they had on you. And I find that's like one of the biggest things. And for me now, what's really driving me is like the person Corby, who just passed away, wanted me to become, and that's pushing me even more than anything else. And it's like, for me, that's the best way to keep that person there in my mind. And for you now, what's pushing you to strive for more than anything right now? Like, is there a person? Is there something? Is there like something you hold daily right now?
Honestly, I think it's, again, coming back to identity and looking at the highest version of myself. That is what inspires me on a day-to-day basis. I don't really look to others for that. I think whenever you look to someone else, there's a huge disconnect there because you're not actually that other person. Whereas you are yourself, you are your future self. So it feels much more aligned to be thinking about what the highest version of you looks like and what they want to achieve and what their values are and how they live on a day-to-day basis. And that's honestly the thing that drives me, is just every day waking up and asking myself that question and continuously doing the work to be clear on my North Star vision and what it is that I am working towards in life, and having those goals set, revisiting them as well, because goals will change, or there'll be certain goals that you achieve and then you're like, what's next? on to the next thing. But then, yeah, also understanding that my life is now, and if I can live today and have a beautiful day today and make progress today, that's all there is. Tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Yeah. You can tell you really bring things back to the moment and you're very present in terms of what you do. Has it always been like that?
No. As I said, growing up, I came from a pretty broken household. And I think that, if I'm completely honest, I had this balance from my parents where my mom, she would always tell me that I could do whatever it is that I would want to do. And my dad, being quite unwell, wasn't always as supportive. And I think from having that balance of one parent telling you you can achieve the world and the other one telling you that you won't, I just had this drive when I left home to achieve so many things. And, when all my friends were off traveling after high school and, doing all of that, I wasn't. I was studying, I was working, I was building my business. And I think, I'll be completely honest, at one stage, I worked myself so hard, I actually completely broke down. I completely broke down. And I'm not sure if I've told you this before, but when I was 17, because I finished high school a year early, I was bumped up a year. So I started university really early. So I had just turned 17 when I started university. And I actually had blood poisoning. And I nearly passed away from blood poisoning at 17 years old, completely living out of home. It was the scariest thing ever. And I think that really helped put things into perspective for me, because I was like, well, if you don't have your health, you literally do not have anything. And at the end of the day, tomorrow is not guaranteed, because this just happened completely out of the blue. I'm a very healthy person. It was just something that happened completely out of the blue. And yeah, it was just a complete mindset shift for me. And I'm not saying I'm perfect either. This is something that I really have to work on every single day. But from practicing it over time, it's definitely gotten a lot easier to do. And I think that I've definitely found a lot of inner peace living that way. I just don't buy into the whole hustle culture, sacrifice yourself, grind until you get there. Absolutely. Do I work hard? 100%. There are days where I'll do 12, 14-hour days of work, but I just don't feel like I'm chasing something anymore. I'm doing the work for the sake of doing the work, not because I'm trying to necessarily achieve a certain outcome and not give myself permission to feel great until I get there. I think that's been the biggest change for me.
It kind of what you said there in terms of it puts things in perspective. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. I think that was my biggest realization recently, where it's I think it was yesterday. I've never been more present and clearer after what happened on Wednesday, and it was it really puts things into perspective, because you're whatever happens doesn't matter, because of this they can't be worse than that. So it's I think when you put things into perspective, that's the secret to being present. And yesterday my thoughts weren't clear because everything was completely blank. I was I've never felt like this for a very long time. There's probably been two parts where I felt like it. One where I was in China and I was like, right, we're screwed over here. There was a bit of a backstory what happened is, do you know when you go to certain places and you have to like pay to get in to get to the top of the hill, and there's like one of those places where it's like a mountain and you pay to get in, and I think it was at 7 p.m. so it was just about to close, and I paid to get in. I went to the top. It was at 8 p.m. It closed at 8:30. I was like, they won't shut the door on us. They'll make sure, they'll open for us. I went to the top. I was like, we'll come back at 10. And then they closed it off. I was like, right, we're stuck in a forest in China. And this is not sure what's going to happen here. And all of a sudden the monks come out, which is crazy. I think I might have told you this. I'm not sure. And the monks came out. You stay with the monks. I think that night, the monks came out about 9 when the sun was going down. And I stayed with them the whole night up until the next morning when they opened the gates. And that was like the most present I've been since. I was like, those two parts of my life, I was like, I've never had clearer thoughts since, because I was like focusing just putting this into perspective. Back then, it was like, I need to make sure things are right so I can get back home, be on time, etc.
You're always thinking about the next thing.
Yeah, I think you kind of find signs in terms of when you're being pulled away from the vision. It's like, for me, I know if I'm going for a walk with the missus or something like that, and I'm not listening to what she's saying, I'm like somewhere else. I'm like, I picked that out now a little bit quicker. But I'd carry on having that conversation in my mind, and then she's like, "You listen?" I'm like, "Oh, don't actually know." So you kind of have like certain parts where you get pulled away from.
It's just practicing bringing in that self-awareness, and there's so many like amazing mindset shifts that you can use to help with that as well. Like one thing that I practice a lot is, I think, what if this was the last time? What if this was the last time I was going to dinner with you? And what if this was the last time I am having a conversation on the phone with a family member? I think that for me like really helps you to put things into perspective and have a lot of gratitude for them as well, because it sounds so cliche, but it's like it's the simplest things in life that we can find the most amount of joy in,
And just to dive into that, because there's always coming to the end of the year, what's been your biggest lesson this year so far?
Biggest lesson this year? I know I keep coming back to the same thing, which is like talking about the present moment.
Yeah.
It really is that nothing in my life could happen to make tomorrow better than today. That's probably been my biggest lesson. Yeah.
Powerful. Mic drop. It's being respectful of time as well. I know you're going to dive into nutrition, but I think this is like very powerful to go through, because I think a lot of what we spoke about is like the physique transformation, but the mind leading the way as opposed to the body leading the way, and the person you're becoming as opposed to what you need to do. I think that is a thing.
We're just going to have to do another podcast on nutrition,